It is the last best place left on the US-Mexico border. It is the only place on the US-Mexico border that isn't already overrun by border militarization. You go there, you sit in the river, you can float in the center channel of the Rio Grande, and you are floating on the legal international border, which is the deepest channel of that desert river. And you wouldn't know that you're on a border because, well, for one, borders aren't real in nature. And for me, going to Big Bend, it allows me to recharge and it allows me to believe in a future for the borderlands that is not defined by walls, militarization, and devastation that we've seen.
You're listening to the Rewilding Earth podcast. I'm your host, Jack Humphrey. If you've been following the show for a while, you know we talk a lot about the sanctity of our public lands. We often look at these places as possibly the only thing Americans can still agree on. But right now, that sanctity is being tested in a way we haven't seen in our lifetime. We've seen the Eye of Sauron turn its gaze upon our wildlands before, but going after a national park is a different kind of affront. It's a direct challenge to one of the highest levels of wildlands protection that we have. When you start talking about drilling into desert springs for concrete and running steel through a place like Big Bend, you're not just talking about a border. You're talking about nothing less than cutting the heart out of one of our crown jewels. But there is a silver lining here. This move has been so aggressive that it's actually starting to unite people who haven't spoken to each other in years. It's creating a coalition of ranchers, hunters, and conservationists who are all saying the same thing. Not here. Not ever. To help us walk through what's actually happening on the ground, I brought back a friend of the show who's been on the front lines of this fight for years. Laiken Jordahl has been a tireless advocate against the destruction caused by border militarization and has spent more time than just about anyone documenting the damage to our desert ecosystems. He's currently working with the No Big Bend Wall Coalition to stop this project before it permanently mars the last best place on the Rio Grande. Laiken, welcome back to the Rewilding Earth podcast.
Great to talk to you, Jack.
I wish it was under better circumstances.
I know I always seem to join you when there's some sort of catastrophe unfolding.
Well, when there is a catastrophe unfolding, I count you among the few that I want to have on the air with me to walk us through it. So take it away, sir. Unveil.
All right. So, just a month ago, the Trump administration was preparing to build border walls through one of America's crown jewel national parks, Big Bend, the place where I used to work. A ton of public pressure has come out. A bipartisan, nonpartisan movement has come out to defend this place from these border wall plans. And it seems like the administration has said that right now they might focus on some other areas just outside the park. But this place is very much under threat. And engineers have already mapped out the courses for these walls to cut through this incredible national park that everybody who hasn't been should certainly go see and visit while they still can.
We have been stabbed in the heart many, many, many times. What was this spring that they were pulling water out of that they were making cement with?
Yeah, in Arizona, we saw them drill these water wells to mix concrete for the wall. So they're sucking up the most precious resource we have in the desert, just so they can mix concrete for these wall footers and do dust control. And they permanently altered a spring at the San Bernardino National Wildlife Refuge, which is home to 4 different endangered endemic fish. And they had some impacts on the Quito Baquito Spring in Organ Pike, which is a deeply sacred site to the Yacha.
Yes, that was it. Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it's the DHS has made it a point to inflict as much damage as possible when they build walls anywhere and everywhere. And all of the destruction that we've seen in Arizona, the blasting of mountains, the draining of groundwater, the evisceration of sacred sites, that's exactly what we're fighting to stop in Big Bend. And that's part of why I feel so convicted to protect this place from border militarization. It is the last best place left on the US-Mexico border. It is the only place on the US-Mexico border that isn't already overrun by border militarization. You go there, you sit in the river, you can float in the center channel of the Rio Grande, and you are floating on the legal international border, which is the deepest channel of that desert river. And you wouldn't know that you're on a border because, well, for one, borders aren't real in nature. And for me, going there, going to Big Bend, it allows me to recharge and it allows me to believe in a future for the borderlands that is not defined by walls, militarization, and devastation that we've seen in Arizona and elsewhere.
Well, I bring that up with the springs and blowing up the mountains, ridiculous project goals where the mountain itself towers over this stupid little fence that they built. And it's a place where nobody crosses, all of those things. Those have all been pretty big shockers. But I want to reiterate to people what you're hearing about here is they want to build a wall through a national park. There's no higher protection in the land than national parks. It's the only great idea that America has ever had.
Amen.
And so I want everybody to really absorb this. This is what's going on. And if you casually get involved whenever you have a chance with other things, I'm going to be urging everyone to get fully, both feet involved in whatever we need to do. Because this is a test. They're always testing their boundaries, right? They're always
Absolutely.
testing stuff. And the next test, since they've done everything, they've rolled over the Endangered Species Act. They've rolled over all of these different springs, these highly protected areas, the butterfly. I mean, like, they have done it all. The only thing left to do is to see if they could possibly destroy a whole national park. And that's exactly what we're talking about today.
Yeah, and to be clear, if they build walls through this area, they are cutting off the Rio Grande from access on the U.S. side. Like the Rio Grande, the river, Santa Elena Canyon, whitewater boating in this area, like that's not just a part of the park. That is the soul of this park. That is the soul of this landscape of this place. And even if they build walls not in the national park, but outside on private land, on state park land, it will be cutting off people from access to the river. And the river there, I mean, it is everything. It is a lifeblood. It preserves life there, not just for people, but for wildlife. So we're going to see animals, javelina, deer, bears, mountain lions, unable to access their only reliable source of drinking water, which is that river. This thing will just be devastating for people and for wildlife in the region.
I was talking to Austin Alvarez not too long ago, and he is a big fan of Big Bend and the Rio Grande in that area, and a former river guide there. Yeah, I think it would probably be helpful for a lot of people who listen to and support rewilding in general, and talk a little bit about what it's like to go down that particular river.
Yeah, it is a premier river of the American West. It is one of the great desert rivers for whitewater boating, for anybody who likes floating. It's geologically, it's a miracle. Floating through these 1,500-foot tall canyons, looking up at the walls, knowing one side's America, one side's Mexico. The landscape doesn't care. It is such an incredible experience that I think challenges all of our notions that we've been told about this specific border and borders in general. It's amazing. You can pull your boat on either side of the river and pitch camp, and nothing really changes. But it is one of the most incredible Western rivers, and everybody should go see it while they still can. And we are going to fight like hell to preserve access to this gem of a river.
You can see the border the way that wildlife does, which is not at all. Like,
exactly.
Not a lot of places anywhere in the United States where you can get that feeling, where you're really unmolested by all of the trappings of authoritarian societies that are locking everything down on both sides, for both sides. So is there going to be a sea change, or is it that most of the time people aren't thinking about the wall anymore because it's not the great big 2016 campaign promise? It's not in the news as much anymore. What's the bigger mood right now toward all of this?
Yeah, I mean, everybody in West Texas is talking about this. And it has united people across the political aisle, across the political spectrum in ways that I honestly haven't seen in any issue that I've ever worked on. We are seeing Republican judges, Republican sheriffs come out against this thing, and not just come out against it, but come out swinging, saying this is God's country. How could you ever suggest of marring it permanently with a border wall? So we've got the ranchers and the landowners on our side. We've got the hunters and anglers on our side. It's a little reminiscent of the big fight around the public lands fire sale that Senator Lee tried to push last summer. I think that's the
Yeah.
only other issue that I've ever seen this kind of nonpartisan groundswell movement uniting to fight this thing. I think in Arizona and other places, people are, there's a little bit of exhaustion around this issue, and people, have been subjected to seeing it and seeing this devastation for so many years. But in Big Bend, we haven't seen walls go up, so people are fighting for their homes, and they're they're fighting hard.
That's one thing that I don't understand about this administration and this type of administration. They always try to go after public lands, and there's never more hand holding among unusual bedfellows than when they try to go after public lands. It's the dumbest thing you could possibly do, and I think it's because these guys do not know history. They do not know they have a 100% track record for losing on things like this. And they keep doing it. This country
Yeah,
still loves one thing, and that one thing is public lands.
exactly. And the Republicans of the last generation, they actually went outside and they would hunt and they would fish. But the people in charge right now, they wouldn't last a day in the wilderness. I don't think they understand the first thing about how to survive outside. And they see public lands, as they tell us, as balance sheets, as assets to liquidate, as venues to squeeze maximum profits out of. And that is very much at odds with the opinions of the American people, who overwhelmingly love their public lands. So this issue, both just public lands advocacy, that the attempted fire sale of our public lands, and the construction of border walls in far west Texas, where they make absolutely no sense. These issues have the power to bring about a new coalition, a new nonpartisan coalition that really puts the land first over extractive industry, over billionaires. And that's what we're seeing in Big Bend.
It's been a plan all along to pit different groups of people against each other. And they've worked very, very hard at this for well over 100 years. And now they constantly put that all of that work, all of that money, that time, that effort in jeopardy when they threaten to unite us around issues like this. Because once we get in rooms with these other people we're supposed to fear or hate or whatever, we find out that we're all pretty much the same. And we all pretty much care about generally the same stuff. It's only hot button issues that were just created out of thin air to make us hate each other and take a side. And then we realize those
Exactly.
issues aren't really even that important. I think
Yeah.
it's really reckless of them to do stuff like this because it's going to blow their cover.
It's a huge opportunity. I mean, and it just exposes how out of touch they are with the American public. But yeah, like you said, we've got more in common with, a conservative hunter or rancher than we do with any of these oil-soaked billionaires that are making decisions that define the future of public lands in America.
So what's the fight look like?
Yeah, well, we've been mobilizing like crazy on the ground out there. There's an amazing coalition, the No Big Bend Wall Coalition. Everybody should find them on Instagram or social media, wherever you're at. They have been doing a phenomenal job of drumming up opposition here. And we've seen, we saw thousands of people turn out at the Capitol in Texas a couple of weeks ago. Hundreds of people at the mouth of Santa Elena Canyon in a huge sister demonstration where we strung banners across the mouth of the canyon that said "Save Big Bend." We've had just an incredible amount of opposition that includes a lot of conservative voices that you might not expect. So, a ton of political lobbying is going on behind the scenes. There's a lot of people that are working in DC to make sure that Congress is aware of what's going on. We've rallied over 130 different local outfitters, organizations, businesses to push Congress to actually restrict the use of federal funds in the Big Bend region. So that's getting some traction. And we're also filing lawsuits. We filed a lawsuit because CBP has refused to turn over even the most basic planning maps and data of this project as they're preparing to rip away land from private landowners and build up walls that will stop people from accessing the river. We also filed a much more substantial challenge, challenging the authority that DHS is using to waive all of our nation's most important environmental laws to rush this project through. So we're challenging that authority. We continue to believe that it is a gross abuse of the power of the executive. And we hope the judge will step in and stop this project because, even if it's not happening right now in the parks, it is still rapidly pushing forward on land outside of the park. And our lawsuit is challenging the waiver everywhere in the Big Bend sector where it's being applied.
Wilderness is self-willed land. A wild animal is a self-willed animal. They are earthlings that are as yet not thralls to man. Those words from Dave Foreman define why we do what we do. The Rewilding Earth podcast is a long-running project of the Rewilding Institute. Because of listeners, donations, and people and organizations sharing this podcast with others, you've helped us spread the blueprint for a wilder, more self-willed world. But we can't let up. Most of the world still needs to absorb what it means to restore nature for its own sake. Please consider making a donation today to support the show. Your gift helps us reach the next generation of rewilders who will rebalance the natural world. Go to rewilding.org/donate to help us spread the word. And thanks for standing with the wild. Why don't we already have a reputation among these guys not to mess with us? Like around this issue, this is the only one we can really be cocky about because we have a track record of decimating them in these issues. Although this issue is not like any other because, well, I'll remind everyone, they're trying to build a wall through a national park. It's so absurd that anybody would ever think they can do that. And you wonder if they might be just doing that as a sleight of hand to get us focused somewhere that they're doing something somewhere else. I mean,
I don't think they're that sophisticated, Jack.
Yeah, true.
But let's go on like a little perverse mental exercise. Imagine that you work for the administration. Imagine that you work for DHS and you've got Trump or whoever breathing down your neck saying, I want more miles. Give me my miles. I want to say I built 1,000 miles of wall. And you're looking on a map because God knows you've never been outside. You've never been to the border. You've definitely never been to far West Texas. And you see this big chunk of federal land that is a national park. I mean, that is the obvious place. You can strong arm the Park Service. You can waive the Organic Act. You can waive all the laws. You can make it happen there. They have the money to make it happen there. I think the only thing they didn't expect was the amount of truly bipartisan opposition that was going to put their bodies on the line and stop this thing if they moved forward. So I really do think, they're just looking on a map and saying, we can control that land. Let's put it there. It's easier than, suing all these private ranchers and poor landowners along the river and trying to steal their land. Let's put it in the national park. How about that?
Well, yeah, if they're really that stupid, then somebody had to make the calculation that it would be better to go after the tree huggers than the private landowners who elected you.
Yeah, and there are definitely a number of Trump voters out in this area that are going on record saying they deeply regret their votes for this administration. But there's also a ton of folks who did not vote for this administration in the area. And Presidio County, didn't actually go red in the presidential election. Brewster County, where part of the park is, did. But it's different. The politics in far West Texas are very different. And I think the biggest divide is like people who are totally apolitical and don't trust the federal government and don't want to participate in any elections, and the people who actually, pick a candidate and have a dog in the fight. And this fight has united all of them, even the most apolitical folks who have no trust in the feds. They're going to turn out next election to make sure that they vote against this ridiculous federal overreach that is threatening to destroy their homeland.
So it sounds like we've got this all taken care of, and maybe we don't need our listeners to do anything in particular, or is there something you still need us to do?
We would absolutely love it if you tell everyone you know that this is still a threat. This is still happening. We absolutely need to be pushing our members of Congress to pass legislation, pass appropriations legislation that restricts the use of federal funds for border wall construction in Big Bend. If folks aren't aware, like we already passed $46 billion for border wall construction in Trump's big beautiful bill, so-called big beautiful bill. That's enough money to wall off the entire border. That is an obscene amount of money. So what we can do now, what Congress can do, is actually put some strings on that funding and claw back some protections, saying we can't use that money for building walls in Big Bend. And that's what we're pushing them to do.
And we're at nobigbendwall.org, right? That's where we
Correct.
can find everything that we can do, sign up, learn more.
And we'll have action items there. We definitely will have another big push to Congress when the time is right. And yeah, they've got a lot of different action items there that we're coordinating with them closely on this. So stay tuned, stay in touch with those accounts and check that website.
What's the deal in your mind with this huge overall test of the sanctity of public lands in America, and this obviously even bigger hunger than we've ever had before? I mean, we have less resources, we have less of everything, and they're just eyeing all of the oil and the gas and the everything, the timber that they can get out of the last places, because these were the places that we protected with the strongest protections ever. How big of a threat are public lands in general under now, as opposed to maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, this administration is running the government like a private equity firm. They are trying to strip and sell every single part of this country, whether that's federal agencies, protected public lands. It's clear they're trying to strip this thing away and sell the rest of it for parts. Also, they can squeeze a little bit more profit for their shareholders. That is a new threat. That is a new level of threat that we had never ever seen before. To be clear, the status quo from 10 years ago, even under Biden, even under Obama, did not match the public's desires for public lands. And we, for far too long, have allowed our public lands to be used as the industry playgrounds, to be logged and mined and drilled in, all to squeeze profit, again, for billionaires. None of this benefits you or I. None of this benefits any of the usual American voters. But the threat that we're seeing now takes it to such an extreme that I think we have a really big opportunity to push back, to unify atypical political coalitions, and actually to re-envision completely the future for American public lands that the public actually wants, where people are put first over profits, where wildlife are free to exist, and where clean water, clean drinking water is abundant. Because that's what people want.
We can learn a lot from the past, but I think in this moment, we also need to think about how the fight is going to change, given that we've reached a new place in history. The eye of Sauron is really glaring at our most prized crown jewels of wildness now, because they've done their damage to practically everything else. So somehow the fight's going to have to change. And I think part of it has to do with what you said, with these unusual coalitions. We have to get more powerful than we've ever been before. We need to wield that power extremely effectively in ways we never have before. What do you think?
Well, yeah, absolutely, I agree. And we can't get caught in this mindset of, let's just go back to the status quo of the Biden years.
No, I wasn't happy then. Who was happy then? Nobody I know was happy.
Exactly. Which I think kind of got us where we are, right? But how do we build this into a completely new movement for public lands? And I think that we have a big opportunity to do that, because, like I said, the way that this administration is running things is radicalizing even the most middle of the road folks, turning them into public land defenders, and educating them on these issues. So we've got a big opportunity here.
I would love it that in 40 or 50 years, when there's the first chance that a GOP member could ever even get elected as a dog catcher, that they reminisce about this time and go, man, we should have never gone after Big Bend, because that just ruined it. And we haven't seen, a lick of power since then. And it's because we went after Big Bend.
I would love for that to be the way the history books are written, and we're going to do everything we can to make that the case.
Yeah. Because obviously there's no culture there anymore. Well, there's a culture there. It's a horrible, dark culture, but it's one of just, the same ideology as a cancer cell. That's their culture. And so, how does anybody put those kinds of people back in office? I just don't see how it could possibly. And now you're talking about more and more people. The more they go after public lands, the more we make friends with people they want us to be fighting. So
Exactly.
it could be that in the future, they're like, man, we should have just left that tiny little amount of public lands alone.
Yeah, I hope it's a story that Mike Lee, the weirdness of Mike Lee and his obsession with selling off our natural heritage, combined with them going after Big Bend, is the straw that broke the camel's back.
It would really be ironic because you can't get a conservation headline in any major network now if you pay them $1 million. Like the back burner that we have been put on is like a new further back burner on the stove than we've ever had before when it comes to conservation. It's hard to make inroads when there's war, there's scandal and corruption and controversy. And I mean, you have to get behind all of that before you can ever talk about clean water.
Right.
Which is crazy because clean water is literally the only thing that matters. On the water planet, we're all water people. We're highly dependent on that resource. But we talk about everything but conservation, and it drives me crazy.
Right. And I think these folks don't realize too, just like there is a deep sense of patriotism that people have towards the land. If you want to talk about patriotism, you want to talk about American pride. I mean, I think public lands are certainly the best, one of the few good ideas that this country's had. But look at what they've protected for generations now. That's what people are patriotic about. That's what a lot of folks on the right are patriotic about. So they've really poked the bear on this one. And it'll be interesting to see if those coalitions endure. I certainly hope that they do. And I think that it's also going to take folks on the left, like we're going to have to open our minds and open our arms to some of these folks. We're not going to have to accept everything they think or believe, but we have to be willing to team up with them and push when it's a fight that we need them to win on like this.
There's still stuff to be won, but we are also a post big wildlands, roadless areas kind of conservation now, because we've done a good job and we've gotten a lot of places. We're also entering the recovery phase. We need to start looking at places that were never protected, that were decimated in one way or another, and start looking at how do we acquire those lands? How do we recover those lands, rewild those lands?
Yeah.
And so I feel like we're kind of on a teeter-totter that's pretty much even between those two things. Is that kind of how you look at it now?
I think it is. And, you speak to this idea that we have all of these lands that have already been scarred by industry. We have all of these lands that have been neglected. They're still in public hands. We need to create national restoration areas and put people to work restoring these places to make them viable wildlife habitat again. And then let's expand the national parks. Then let's designate 100 new national parks and a bunch of new national recreation areas. Let's give people the opportunity to go outside and feel connected to nature, because that radicalizes everybody in terms of making them fight for this place.
It benefits those guys that argue against the necessity of national parks and everything, that some of the biggest population centers in this country are so far removed from iconic national parks like Yellowstone. You just aren't going to get something like that except for the Smokies. And the Smokies are a heck of a way away from like kids who would like to visit from New York or Vermont. I mean, and then you got the Adirondacks, but those two things are still pretty far away from the vast majority of the population east of the Mississippi. And everybody and people are recognizing that. Like, we need more public lands, and we need them to be closer to these population centers so people can just simply have something to fall in love with and realize how important the connection to nature that we've lost is to recover and maintain.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more.
So where do we go from here? Where are you optimistic?
Yeah. I mean, I'm so optimistic about these atypical coalitions that have popped up to fight this thing, these new friendships that have been made. I've got folks in West Texas telling me that this fight has healed family divides. There was a lot of divide after the 2024 election. People on very much the other side of issues. This fight has united the community. It's gotten people over decades long grudges. Folks are working together who didn't work together before, and that is it's healing. It's power building, and that's going to endure long after this fight goes away. Hopefully, after we win this fight. But I want to see that across the board, across the country for public lands. I want to see people realize that, yeah, clean water, that's important. Abundant wildlife, I do want to fight for that. Access to nature, that sounds like it should be a human right, and I want my children to have access to nature. So I think, yeah, people are going to have to, put down their phones. The news, like you said, should center these environmental stories, because at the end of the day, clean water is the most important thing to all of us. And I think that we are going to be able to create a new generation of public land lovers, public land defenders, and hopefully we'll be able to expand our public land system across the country, because that's the future that our kids deserve.
We've talked a lot today about what a good feeling it is to be in a room with people you wouldn't normally be in and agreeing with. That's our side. That's our take. But have you ever been in a conversation or been a fly on the wall in a room to hear the other side, the other guys that we don't normally talk to and join in with on campaigns? Do they talk like this? Are they surprised? Are they relieved that we're not at each other's throat, at least for that particular issue? Or is it just us that feel that way?
No, I mean, I think everybody, at least in the case of Big Bend, they're making amends. They're working together. They're fighting this thing collectively. And I think, the real other side here, the DHS bureaucrats, the billionaire contractors, they won't show their faces in these communities. They are terrified of sitting down and meeting with these landowners who they're sending condemnation letters to. Back in the old days, DHS would hold town halls and they would actually meet with the landowners that they were just getting ready to sue to steal their land. Now they just get a letter in the mail and then it goes to the judge. I mean, it's the folks on the other side of this issue that are truly on the other side of this issue, they won't even set foot in the county.
They think they're far, far more powerful than they ever have been. It's crazy. The fumbles that are happening. I really believe that it surprises them, because I think that they thought they were going to have ultimate and complete and total power. And in some ways, the way this wall has been pushed through, it has appeared that way. Right. So they can move fast and they can just dedicate a bunch of money and everything and break a whole bunch of laws. And we move slower than that, but we're getting faster. So they can tear up a lot of stuff before we get enough momentum that I think we're starting to have now, that they just don't understand that they don't have the power, and they could never have the power that they ever thought they could, where they just send out memos and say, your land is mine now. You can't do that, man. You never could. It's crazy to think that they think that.
Especially in far west Texas, man. I mean, people do not react well to the feds coming to take your land out here. It is, it's interesting because there were some families that were in modern day Big Bend National Park that were eminent domained off of their land in the 30s and 40s. They were kicked off that land by the government. There are some families there who really did not support the establishment of that national park. They saw it as a federal land grab, but they got booted off. Now, some of those exact same families' descendants are receiving condemnation letters to take their land again, to build a wall that will cut them off from access to the Rio Grande. And it's fascinating. Ostensibly, the government took the land to make the park to protect it, and now they're trying to destroy it.
Yeah, the ironies are just flying out in every direction, too, because that land wouldn't be anything that they'd be upset about having a wall drilled through if the government hadn't protected it. Because capitalism would have absolutely annihilated that area by now had it not been protected. And now it's just crazy. It makes your head spin.
It really does.
We live in a really, really strange time.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having a sense of humor about it. We got to laugh. We got to stay hopeful. And then we got to fight.
Yeah. All right. It's nobigbendwall.org, and you'll find that link at rewilding.org/pod in this episode. And I will keep updating that episode page since this is a live issue. As I hear more from Laiken and the center and other people, that page will become a living page until this is put to bed. I know people are listening on Spotify and YouTube and other places, but we do have a homepage for every one of these episodes at rewilding.org/pod, and you got extra credit in every episode. Laiken, thank you so much for dropping in today and talking about this issue. I think people are ready to fight.
I think so. Yeah. Thanks, Jack, so much. I really appreciate everything that you and the Rewilding Institute are doing.
On behalf of everyone at the Rewilding Institute, thank you for listening, sharing, and supporting the Rewilding Earth podcast. Over the last 9 years, this show has grown into a significant global community because of people like you. If you'd like to keep that momentum going and rewild the world with us, please head over to rewilding.org/donate. Your support ensures we keep telling the stories that the wild needs us to hear. Thanks for listening.